But it's the original one, yes.
Hello. Who's monitoring that? You are. I was expecting a few more people. Yeah. Okay. Are we live, 𝐊𝐢𝐝𝐬? No. Oh. Okay. That's not good. Can you come on the phone? So we start the usual. First time I do it live. I'm a little bit more nervous. You probably guys are better. You've done live a few times, didn't you?
No, I haven't.
It's pre-recorded.
Yeah.
And you have been all over South African media platforms. So this is like home for you. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to start. I don't know if the sound is working. It is working? Okay. So my name is 𝐊𝐢𝐝𝐬, and we are very honored to be here today to discuss this very important topic of neurodiversity, particularly ADHD, with amazing panel members that we have here today. And this is obviously part of our Celebrating Neurodiversity event, which happens every quarter here in Cape Town. Just to give you an idea, Celebrating Neurodiversity is an event that focuses on celebrating the strengths of neurodivergent people. And we will get to hear our experts unpack what neurodiversity is, in case you're not familiar with the word, but we're obviously focusing on one specific neurotype today. So without going any further, I would like to have our very special guests introduce themselves to the audience.
Thank you so much, Emma, for this wonderful opportunity, for the invitation. My name is 𝐊𝐢𝐝𝐬 𝐈𝐧𝐵𝑒𝑡𝑡𝑙𝑒. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I'm very passionate, in, celebrating and any opportunity given to speak to people about neurodivergent or anything mental health related. It's an honor for me to be a part of. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Let's hear the superstar.
Thank you very much, Emma. My name is Wendy Figlan. I'm in nuclear safety, and I'm also the author of the book titled The Beauty and Battle of a Single Mom. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if I may. Such a beautiful introduction. You can hear we have powerhouse of women that are actually making an impact in their own communities, but also, as you've heard, they are quite accomplished in their own fields as well. So it's an absolute honor that we're able to bring them to you so they can share their insights with you today. So Wendy, we're going to start with you. The Beauty and Battle of a Single Mom. What a powerful book. I couldn't put it down. I was kind of debating because as I've mentioned, I've been traveling and I landed in Cape Town midnight 2 days ago. And I was still holding Brené Brown's book, Walking the Journey Alone, what a powerful book. And I said, sorry, Brené, I have to put you down because this is what I need to immerse myself into. The beauty and battle of a single mom. What inspired you to write this book?
Thank you, Emma. Thank you for your question. Most of the times when people talk about having a child, people always focus on the beauty and not the battle. And I've always heard when people talking about the love and so forth, and when I had my child in 2015, I realized that it doesn't end there. Because then I started suffering from emotional battles, social battles, financial battles, to a point that I ended up suffering from depression, and I had to ask myself, I thought motherhood was something brighter than this. What is this? And I could see my life crumbling right in front of my eyes. And I was really not coping, and I didn't know that there was that side of motherhood. And as I was speaking to people, I realized that, look, this is something common. People are going through this. It's just that no one is really talking about these issues. And that's when I was like, okay. And when I started seeing on social media, I would see women throwing children somewhere, women killing themselves after giving birth. And then I realized that this is a mental issue because I myself, I was not coping, and I had to go to the doctor, and I asked the doctor, what's going on? This is how I'm feeling. And she said, it's depression. And I was like, no, it's not. And when I got home, I Googled it, and I found all the signs that the symptoms that I had, I found them on Google. And I was on antidepressants. And I was worried about now the people that really don't have the privilege or don't have the resources to go to the doctor. That's why they end up killing themselves or killing the children. So that's when I started to write this book, to create awareness that it's not just the beauty, there's battles as well.
Absolutely, and the way you explain it, Wendy, it's very authentic, very raw. And I'm curious, Maite, is it something that's common amongst moms after giving birth, a depression of some sort?
Yeah, Wendy just touched on a very important fact. Usually when we talk about motherhood, we rarely ever talk about mental conditions, being associated with that. So obviously, a lot of mothers are hit with this shock, because when we think about motherhood, we think about immediately bonding with our kids. We think about, just easily just getting into the motherhood role and everything just working so wonderfully and perfectly. Hence a need, for the book that she had written, because even when you look out there, either you're looking in books or you're just looking just in societies, these things are not spoken of as they should be, you see. So I think, as she had already mentioned, her realizing that these issues are not spoken of because motherhood is never associated with mental conditions, therefore the need for you to close the gap and speak about that. So it is actually very common. One of the common things that she touched on was postmortem depression. You see, where a lot of mothers, during pregnancy, some of them, you find that they're doing well, they're very excited to receive the bundle of joy. And once that bundle of joy comes, then they're shocked with these feelings of intense sadness. And so if you don't have a word to explain, to label, to identify what that is, imagine the turmoil that you will be experiencing as a mother, associated with feelings of guilt.
Yeah, and I can't help to wonder what causes it. Is it something that should be accepted in society that, and I understand that not every mom experiences something in birth. What are some of the causes of what is it called, postnatal depression?
Yes.
What are some of the causes? I don't know, from a clinical psychologist point of view, are we able to explain what causes it?
Well, depression is both. It can be a circumstantial issue, but it can also be a physiological issue. So what happens is when one is pregnant, there's a lot of changes that happens in our bodies, which obviously it affects, also our mind. It's not just hormonally that we are affected, but also, there is an effect on our mind. And so in some cases, you may find that, the body going through those changes, it's what eventually leads to the depression. So completely, in this case, it will be a chemical thing, right? A biochemical thing, to be specific. Whereas in other situations, you may find that the environment or circumstances and situations are the cause.
Yeah.
You know, where a mother is giving birth, whether maybe they are in an abusive relationship, or the pregnancy was not planned, or, you know, she had never planned to have a baby, you know, so things like that, you know, can result to it. So there are several factors that could lead to that.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Marita, for explaining it so well, because, you know, sometimes people say, no, it just happens. But it's nice to have understanding as to where it comes from. And for you, Wendy, as the author, you actually found solace in writing all of those thoughts down, which kind of help compared to those who don't.
Yes, correct. Writing the book, there were times I had breakdowns. You know, there were times where I had to stop and try to heal, because I think the hardest part was the fact that I had to revisit places in my mind that I thought I had healed from. And I had to go and relive that experience all over again and break down all over again. It was healing, yes, but it was difficult at the same time. You know, having to relive and put that on a piece of paper. And at the same time, wondering how is society going to accept this, because now I'm putting people into my space and I don't know how they're going to receive this, because others will receive it positively and the others negatively. So I think that was the hardest part, but nonetheless, it was very healing.
And when I was going through your book at night, and I was thinking how brave this woman is to be able to share with the public such intimate aspects of your life with so much courage, right, and power and ownership. So I literally felt a deep sense of respect for you having, you know, being able to put all that journey, the experience in this book. And it must have been really challenging. And I know when I was reading, there was an area or a section in the book where you talked about how Google was your partner.
Yes.
Because you essentially went through this journey by yourself.
By myself.
Yeah.
I went through the journey by myself. I'm a product of teenage pregnancy. I was also raised by a single mom, you know, and the relationship is not really good there because I was a constant reminder of her pain. I did not understand at that time, but now that I'm a mom, I do understand, you know, but unfortunately I think the damage is there, but I think I do understand what we went through. So I told myself that it stops right here, just because now, because history is repeating itself. I don't know my father, my child is going through the very same thing. And I told myself, well, I'm going to love my child. My child is not a constant reminder of my pain, My child is something beautiful that happened in my life, and I really don't have control of external factors of those that chose to leave. But what is the important thing is that I chose to stay, and I'm going to love my child and put my best foot forward. It was really tough. I'm not going to lie, but we soldier on.
Yeah, and I love the way you were extending grace to your mom, and even though, you know, some may feel she doesn't deserve it, but you're extending grace because you had the benefits of therapy, which she likely didn't have.
Correct.
And not know how to deal with that situation.
Correct.
Right?
I was saying that obviously in the 80s, I was born in the 80s. At that time, I think they were doing the best they could with what they had. In our time, at least, we know that there's therapy sessions, you know, so you can go to a therapist and talk. And I've realized that every time when I talk, my pain loses its power. You know, I kind of heal, it gets better. I know that some days are better than others, but at those times, when she was born in the 60s, there were not, or in fact, maybe there was therapists, but it was not available to them. So they were using what they had at that time.
Yeah.
And there's no manual or blueprint to raise a child, as difficult as it was, but as I'm saying, I do understand.
Sure. Amazing. I'm curious what you can say to that, my dear, you know, because sometimes you know, we're carrying resentment and pain and going through life, and I can imagine as a single parent, I know you didn't have your son, your son is not a result of teenage pregnancy.
No.
Because you took time.
Because I tried to mitigate, because I always thought probably because I don't know my father was, because they had me when they were in teenagers. So I thought that if I mitigate the process and tell myself I'll have a child at an older stage, I thought I would meet someone older, wiser, who's done this life thing and made their mistakes and learned from it. But unfortunately, that was not the case. But nonetheless, I think I was matured enough to be able to make better choices and better decisions to stay in my child life and make sure that I'm an active mom, I'm a present mom for my child.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And now that links to my latest profession as a clinical psychologist, Maite. And when you come across cases like this with generational trauma, and such that one goes through life carrying that, and when they've got a child, they continue with those negative emotions, and they're not letting them go, and how that affects the next generation of their children. Well, what do you say to that? And I'm sure some of our audience might be going through something similar, because as Wendy has said in her book, that I think it's in the beginning, in the first few pages, where she actually clears it up to say, this is not just my journey, right? It's us, in essence, because across Africa, a lot of women are doing this parenting thing by themselves, and that can be challenging. So what do you say to women or parents or single parents that are going through this journey, carrying the pain and moving on, nursing this pain and not letting it go, just as we had Wendy?
Okay, so you spoke about how, whatever it is that we don't deal with as parents, unfortunately, in most cases, it gets passed on to our children. And so, with Wendy, with what she is explaining, is what was helpful for her is that she was able to reach out and get help. And so it always goes back to the fact that whenever we are struggling, regardless of what we might be struggling with, we don't necessarily have to go through it alone. She also spoke about, Wendy, you touched on the fact that when you had your son, you even when you reflected and looked back at your life, you made a conscious decision to try and break whatever it is that was there, so that it doesn't get passed on to your child. And so sometimes it is not easy for us to try and do that on our own. I know that we sometimes get reluctant to actually reach out, because that can be seen as a sign of weakness. Another reason could be because, like you say, psychology is a fairly new science. We're still trying to get people to get comfortable, with therapy and reaching out and getting help. There are people who are still, afraid of, such help because of the stigma that is also associated with it. So what I would say is, when we identify something, either something that is happening in us or something that we might have seen that might have happened with our parents, it is important for us to take the step forward and reach out for help. And so it is only then that we are actually being assisted in being able to address whatever the issue may be.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Wendy, because I want us to transition into, now I'm a single mom. Now, what happened to my mom might happen to me in terms of how I parent, that I'm going into this fully aware of what future I want for myself and my child. And then boom, your child has ADHD. Talk to us about that.
Look, before my child was diagnosed, I was like, what is this? I sometimes felt that I was failing at being a parent. I was like, what's going on? Why is this child not listening? I would shout at him because now I'm obsessed with raising this perfect child, but I felt like he's slipping right through my fingers because what's going on? And I remember I would pray and say, God, what kind of a child did you give me? Why is this child not listening? I remember one time, and I took him to the doctor. He was 2. He would go inside the wardrobe and just lie there, and I'm looking for him all over, and I couldn't find him. And I was screaming because I was staying in the first floor, and I thought maybe he had jumped. This child is dead crazy, and I would run around screaming. I took him to the doctor. I said, Doctor, there's definitely something wrong. And the doctor said, no, there's nothing wrong with the child, and he's a terrible 2. I was like,
it's a boy.
It's a boy. He's fine. I was like, I don't think so. But obviously, because the professional is saying there's nothing wrong, and I'm a first-time mom, well, then there must be nothing wrong. And then my child went to grade 1. When my child went to grade 1, the teacher called me and said, look, I'm not allowed to diagnose but I'm not talking to you as a teacher, I'm talking to you as a parent. Your child might have ADHD. She said, I've been long enough in this profession to know which child has ADHD, and she guided me because I didn't know what this was. I kind of had an idea, I've heard the name, but I didn't know what it was. And when my child was diagnosed, it was, I'm not sure whether to say it's not a bittersweet moment, but it kind of gave me relief that I'm not a bad parent. But at the same time, it's not nice because now my child is ADHD, and now what is this? And I had to go deep and try to find out what is this to educate myself about this ADHD. And my child would come home, Mommy, I'm trying. He would come home crying, Mommy, I'm trying, and I would tell him, well, you're not trying hard enough. Because he was not diagnosed then. You see, now I'm putting pressure. At school, there's pressure. When he comes home, my friend's parents said they mustn't play with me because I'm naughty, Mommy, I'm trying. To a point that he was suicidal. He would always talk about death, that he's going to kill himself, he wants to go to Father Jesus because he doesn't know what to do anymore. And then when he was diagnosed, I think that kind of gave me some sort of relief.
Yes, and I see in page 20, if you don't mind me reading, you said when ADHD diagnosis finally came, it felt like a door opening after years in a dark room.
Yes.
Yeah.
I specifically said that because I, as I said, I've been praying and trying to be this mother, and I felt like I was failing, and I felt like my child was going through my thing, like I couldn't parent. I felt like I was a bad parent. I would go to the mall, and people would stare at me, look at me as if I'm this bad mom, and I would be like, what am I doing wrong? And then there's mom guilt that will destroy you, that because I keep on shouting, screaming, at this little person. And it was, that's where it started. But when he was diagnosed, I think it gave a little bit of a relief, but some bit of unsettledness at the same time, because now I need to go through this route and try to see the world through my child's mind.
Sure. Yeah, and that's why you said, and slowly I began to forgive myself.
Correct.
Yeah.
I had to go to firstly take him to therapy because now obviously I've identified that he's wounded. No one wants to be around him. At school he's forever in trouble. At home he's forever in trouble. No friends want to play with him, so he had to go to therapy. And when he started going to therapy, I also had to heal. I had to go to therapy myself because mom guilt was destroying me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm curious, Maite, and I almost would like to also have some of our guests here. If there's a question that we have for the panel speakers, so please go ahead and ask. But she has just told us about ADHD, how the discovery of what the child has, but also how she felt somehow not stigmatized, going to a mall, everybody's watching you, what's going on with this mom and with this child. And often people talk about the effects of late diagnosis. Can you talk to us about that? Maybe before you do, also share with the audience what ADHD is.
Okay. Yes. So ADHD, it's an abbreviation for attention. That is for the A, hyperactivity deficit disorder. And is a disorder that was initially diagnosed in children. It only became, recently that we find that actually even adults can be diagnosed with ADHD at a later stage. So the thing that she spoke about when she spoke about what parents with children who have ADHD specifically often have to go through, like for example, when you are at the mall or you're with family and your child seems to be acting differently than other children, is because some of these symptoms, would mimic what you would see in children who are ill-disciplined, children whose parents are not, being firm with them, children whose parents maybe even neglect them. And so when people then see those behaviors, right, then they automatically assume that this child is not disciplined, and that's the reason why the child is behaving this way. And so also from her side, if you heard her saying, she said, I felt like there was something wrong that I was doing, because you could see that also those behaviors, when you saw them, you associated them with, behaviors of a child whose parents are not, disciplining the child. And, these behaviors, what are we talking about? For people who might want to know, what are these behaviors that people often would associate, with behaviors of children who are ill-disciplined? Children with ADHD, as I've just said, there is three things that characterizes children, the condition. That is hyperactiveness. So the children will be very hyperactive, or impulsivity, or inactiveness. So inactiveness means that the children find it difficult to pay attention. All right, and then the children tend to be impulsive. So with attention, and that might not be easily picked up, but then because of their hyperness of the child, you may find that those are the children that run around in the mall. The children that just can't stand still. The children that will impulsively, grab something, who can't wait for their turn, who will interrupt, when adults are talking, who fidgets a lot. And so you see, when you're looking at that and you're just thinking, but this child is like, sit still. Like, can you just sit still? Speaking to what she was talking about, she was saying, well, you're not trying enough. All you have to do is just sit still. If I'm telling you to sit still, what trying needs to be there, because you just sit and not move around. You see, and then for a child, it's very confusing, because I don't know, sitting still, it's impossible for me. Exactly. So then she also spoke the guilt now, as a parent. So you can see clearly that it's not only the child that is struggling, the mother is struggling. It's not only the mother that is struggling, the child is struggling. So there is issues experienced by both parties.
Interesting. We in our audience, just so you guys know, we have audience here, and I'm not sure, Tanide, if I will need to pass my mic. I think I would like to pull in one of our educational and neurodiversity experts, Sonia Engelbrecht. If there's something you want to say, because Wendy talked about, the feedback from school. The kid is being punched at school by mates and maybe people that don't really understand, the peers. And when he gets home, the playground is the same. This poor kid, it's very easy to feel alone. And I can imagine getting to the point where you say, Mom, I don't want to live anymore. That must have been heavy. Maybe we can give to Sonia so she can share with us the educational landscape. Sorry, we were not planning to get you to speak, but I think it's important considering what Wendy has said.
Absolutely, I'm happy to speak. Thank you, Emma. And I mean, it's just amazing to listen to you. I actually want to write down that quote about the dark door, the door opening, because I think so many parents are feeling like this. So from an educational perspective, just in terms of advice, it would be to find your tribe. We were talking about it earlier, to find your tribe and really work together with the parents and the professionals. Otherwise, it can become a very lonely road. And it is so important for the child's well-being to have a group of professionals, a tribe, a multidisciplinary team, all working together. Because as you've mentioned, is that it's not only the child. We're not only working with the child. We're working with the family. We're working with a mom. We're working with the parents. We're working with professionals. So the most important aspect, I feel, from an educational perspective, is to work with a team, a multidisciplinary team, and to sort of strategize goals together. Otherwise, as you said, it can be very lonely. And that's not what we want. And also from the teachers, I mean, I always say to teachers that they shouldn't diagnose, but just listening to you, the impact that teacher had, even though she wasn't supposed to, I really like the fact that she could say, I'm taking off my teacher hat, and I'm speaking you mom to mom. I'm actually getting goosebumps, because that makes such a big impact. It just creates that we've got an understanding. You're not alone. We are a tribe. I'm working with you. I also want what is best for your child. So let's work together.
Teachers like that. Let me have my mic, so you're going to have it back again shortly, because there's some aspect of this book that I think her insights will be quite useful. Thank you for that, Sonia. So as you've heard, we appreciate you teachers who are able to take your head off and say, I'm talking to you as a parent. So now take us through the journey of ADHD. So you've got an assessment for him. Now you have tools in place. You know how to manage him. And obviously this is despite the fact that the dad is not there, the father figure is not there. Talk to us about that.
Look, I'm not going to lie, it was not easy. It was not easy. But going through therapy really helped me, because then I was given a structure on how to do things. Like in my room, the therapist told me that, look, have a chart.
Yeah.
You know, because we struggle. One moment he would wake up and he's dressed up, he's ready, he's sitting in the lounge. When I wake up, he's done. He's ready, sitting there.
Ready for school.
Ready for school. Tomorrow, he's just not in the mood. He's not in the mood. He doesn't want to brush his teeth. He's just not in the mood. And obviously, I have to follow the pattern. I need to follow his energy.
Yeah.
So in his room, there's a chart where we divide it into times. If he brushes his teeth and wears his shoes in this specific time, and then we put a star right through until we leave. And if he doesn't meet all those times, then we put a sad face. And then we do that Monday to Friday. And then at the end of the day, we count the stars and I buy him a gift. So obviously now I need to think and try to play around with the gifts, with what he wants. So that helped also in a way, because as much as it depends on how he's feeling on that specific day, it kind of helped to put a structure in place. That's how it helped. It's not easy, I'm not going to lie, but I think the only thing that really helped me was therapy, and it was put on medication. When medication kicked in, that helped me a lot as well. Because now the problems from school, the complaints dropped. The complaints dropped, and I know that there's a sting, because everyone would tell me, why are you putting your child on medication? This is the white people stuff, and so forth. And that's where I come in. I want to educate my people that this is not a white people stuff.
Absolutely. And just hold it there, because I think there's some charts on the stream. We have Yolanda Gani, who says, I think a lot of mothers experience depression. Who experience depression are feeling incompetent and feel that society will judge them, because mothers usually just have to come. Otherwise, you're not a good mother, right? But as soon as it's important, Mahite, for mothers to shout, to scream and say, I need help, right? And maybe linked to what Yolanda is saying, and what Wendy has said about medication, looking at medication as support. From a clinical psychologist point of view, how important is medication to help for ADHD children?
Okay, so when it comes to medication, Wendy did mention that, you say there was a difference, a huge difference you started picking up. So I know that when it comes to a lot of mothers, when we do the interventions, most mothers will be more comfortable, with the therapy aspect of it. And many mothers tend to shy away, from the medication part of it. And so I heard you, speak about, reinforcing the child, and which is one of the things that obviously when you take your child to see a psychologist, or an occupational therapist, or whoever, a health professional who's working in that regard, then they will give you tools that you're going to be able to use to assist this child. So then how does medication then come in? Medication comes in because ADHD, it's a neuropsychological condition. Okay, so it's a condition that obviously affects our mind, right? It affects our mind, it affects our brain, right? It affects also, it's a physiological condition.
It's not something you can pray away.
It's not something that you can pray away.
Yeah.
It's a physiological condition. So what that means is that it involves neurotransmitters. So these are the things that are found in our brain, right? And so for a child who has ADHD, one of the most common neurotransmitters, which is dopamine, in that child, the levels are low. You see, and this is the neurotransmitter that is responsible for motivation. This is the neurotransmitter that is responsible for helping the child's cognition, the child to be able to pay attention, the child to be able to retain information, that, it helps the child's ability to function, right? So when we then give medication, we supplement that. We are able to increase the child's, dopamine levels. And so your child is able to function like other children. So today, when I was thinking about it, I said, it's very similar to when you have a child who's born without one limb. for example, and this child is expected to run a marathon, with the rest of the kids. And all the kids are running, so you must also run. But then the parents and everybody else does not know that this child only has one leg.
Yeah.
And so everybody's saying, but why are you trying to hop? Like run properly like everybody else, right? And when a parent, now when we come to the knowledge of the fact that this child is just born with, one leg, right? And this child can be assisted. The medication plays a part of getting the artificial leg for the child. So the child now is able to run like other kids. So it's not actually, so as we would think of it, as parents, we're thinking the minute I introduce medication, my child will change from being how I've known my child to be. So I'm so afraid that if I give my child that artificial leg, then it will no longer be the child that I've given birth to.
Yeah, and then please talk about that. And maybe you need to bring a perspective here, because we hear parents saying, oh no, that doesn't look like my little Michael or Martin that I know. They're different. You just can't use this medication. Use ginger and garlic.
Yeah.
So what difference have you seen when you give him medication?
Look, I've seen a lot of difference. He's able now to concentrate. He's at school, there's no complaints. He's able to finish his work, because we had problems. He couldn't finish his work, and the teachers would tell me that the child is very smart, but he doesn't finish his work. When the teacher teaches in class, he would understand it on the first go, and then after that teacher still needs to continue teaching to explain to the others. He'd get bored, he'd start fidgeting in class, he'd go to the bathroom, and when he got to the bathroom, he's playing with water, the whole bathroom is wet, but ever since then, he's on medication. He's like calmed down, because before the medication, I used to go run with him. We used to go to the gym because I was trying to get this energy. We used to run, and I can't always do that at times. But when the medication kicked in, my child became normal like the other children.
Yeah, so we need to remove the stigma around the use of medication. You can as support.
Yes, because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I know in your podcast, Maite, you covered how when you introduced medical support to for your daughter, she did exceptional in school, because people look at medication as, why do you need it? You can do this without it.
Yeah. So the thing about it is, once we complement therapy with medication, the two work together and increase the chance. It increases the ability for the child to function normally. You see, so what we're basically doing when we introduce the medication is we are allowing the child's natural ability to be able to come forward. So we are addressing the condition that is hindering the child's natural ability. So this child, if the inattentiveness is addressed, right, the child is able to function and do things as other children, or even in some cases even more than other children, because that's their natural ability. You see, so of course medication doesn't enhance any skills, but then at the same time, the medication doesn't inhibit any skills. Every medication has its side effects, but these medications are thoroughly, researched, and the side effects that comes with the medication, the psychiatrist that will put the child on the medication will sit down with you as a parent and educate you on those side effects, so you will be well informed and even know how to respond should your child experience those side effects.
Yeah. And I know Maite has to go soon. I don't know how many minutes we have. And it's almost time to go, right? Yeah, so maybe give some closing remarks, because I would like to bring Sonia in. I know we have Mampo segment coming soon, because I want us to touch on the classroom experience. When I was reading here, all the confusing messages coming from between the school and the home environment about the father, the presence of the father, those are really, I think, very vulnerable concepts that we need to unpack a little bit more. And I think Sonia will be able to help us with that. What are your closing remarks as a clinical psychologist, but also as a mother who's also raising a daughter who's ADHD? What are your closing remarks to South Africans?
Okay, so I would like to take it back to Wendy. What Wendy said, which I actually, let me say what Wendy is doing, which is, being the spokesperson of mothers who are out there embarrassed, sitting in a corner trying to hide away because their child has this condition and they don't actually understand. Here is a person who has been through the journey and who is, speaking from experience. But not only that, you've come, on the other side, like brightly. So it gives hope, to parents. So you have touched on the fact that, I also have that experience as a child. It's different when you speak to situation from an experiential knowledge, than when you speak to a situation from a theoretical knowledge, So I would say what I want to say to mothers is, firstly, I would like to encourage them to get the book, right? To be able to read on, get your tribe. As she said, this is part of you getting your tribe. You are able to find the people that are going through what you're going through, who can speak to your situation and with hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Maite, for sharing such insights with us. And it makes such a big difference when you can hear from people that have actually not walked, that are actually walking the walk, right? So as you have had, go get your copy, find your tribe, and be empowered. We're going to release you. I don't know if we need to pause or if she could walk out.
Okay.
Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of the evening. You look amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
Sonia, can we ambush you? And yeah, this is a very serious segment. Goodbye. Yeah. Thank you for our audience at home. I don't know if there's anything that we need to add. Tandina, I don't know what I need to do here. It says go live, but it's going live already.
Okay, it's live.
It is live. Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Sonia, for joining us. You have almost 2 decades as an educational support specialist, as a neurodivergent specialist. You've worked with schools, you've worked with leaders in corporate, you've also worked with teachers and governing bodies and families and parents like Wendy. In her book, Wendy, maybe we start with you. You talk about those special days where fathers are being celebrated at school, and your amazing Livambo coming home and asking. In fact, I would like to read, because when I read this, it literally just broke my heart. And he asked you a question. He says, "Mommy, where's my dad?
Yes.
Why is it only you? Why is it just us?" And when you, not that you ignored him, you were still processing what he was asking you. And he exploded, he said, "Mommy, I said, where's my dad? Why don't I have a dad? What did I do wrong? Why me?" Mom, how did that feel?
Look, that was very difficult, because obviously he goes to school, he sees other children being dropped off by their fathers. We go to swimming, it's just me and him all the time. And obviously he's looking around and he's seeing that, why is his life different? And I think that's where it came in, because even in the house, it's just the 2 of us, of which for him it doesn't make sense, because all his friends have mothers and fathers. It's Father's Day, they're able to talk about, my father did this, it's holidays, my family did this. So obviously to him it didn't make sense, because why is his family different than the other children? That's when he started now having these suicidal thoughts, because he was not understanding what is going on, and in that I was not really ignoring him, but I'm trying to, how do I explain to him something that he can understand at that age, but it's something that was really problematic. It was a problem, and I had to find ways and means to explain to him, because even when he was playing outside, he would play outside, he would come storming in, because probably of what they were speaking about outside, and he's like, "I want my dad, where's my dad?" And he would, when we pray, he would say, "God, can you please bring my father back? What did I do?" And he would feel that, "God, please forgive me, what did I do?" And it's something that no child should experience. And knowing as a parent that there's absolutely nothing I can do, my child, besides support you, just besides to be there. Because as I said, we don't have control of external factors. We don't have control of those who left, but the only thing that I can do is just put my best foot forward and be a present mom and be a supportive mom for my child. And as I mentioned, I went through it as well.
Yeah.
Because even in our house, it was just me and my mother. That chair, even on Father's Day, has always been empty. And now it's a generational thing. Now also in my case, even though I've tried to mitigate the process, the chair is still empty.
It's outside of your control.
I don't have control, unfortunately. I don't have control of external factors.
And I'm curious, Sonia, in an educational environment, I'm sure you've seen kids that are coming from single parent home. And in the case of Wendy, it's a boy, it's not a girl. When it's a girl, I think it might be a little bit easier because you are a point of reference.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what have you seen? What dynamics have you seen? And how is the school environment helping or not helping?
I think first of all, this is obviously a very sensitive matter, and I think there are many children facing exactly the same. It's not necessarily only lack of father, but we have grandparents day, and they might not have grandparents or Mother's Day, and they might not have mothers or siblings. So schools do celebrate these days, obviously, and we want to celebrate our parents and our fathers and our mothers and things like that. But that is where the school has to play a role in creating a sensitive environment. So in the school, like my school, for instance, I mean, we were very open in discussing that families were different.
Yeah.
We have different families in the way they do things, different families in the dynamic. We have families where there are two mothers and no fathers, and then how do we explain that? So these are very sensitive topics to discuss, but I think if the school environment supports that and say that, you know what, there are different situations, we're all different. And then on the day that it's Father's Day and they can bring their father to school, your mother plays that role. Then she must come to school. I'm thinking of, I mean, we are a two-parent family myself, but my son has a parent and it's actually a father and son cricket day coming one day. And because when I started teaching, I was a cricket coach, my son said, Mom, I want you to play, which was an interesting thing.
Yeah.
And I actually thought it's so beautiful that he shifts the narrative and said, this is not only for a dad, a mom can do this too. So that's where the school must play the role in just creating the awareness that families look different and it's okay. There's beauty in that as well.
Yeah, sure. So you're talking about the educational side of it. The school can educate.
Absolutely.
Such that the students understand as much as the school must educate about neurodiversity, about ADHD, and essentially how Lubambo maybe might have been presenting himself amongst the maids. The school has an obligation to educate what ADHD is and how it affects different people. In the same breath, they must educate that families are not all the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then talk to us, Wendy, about that experience of going to school just to you and him on those special days.
Look, on those special days, I would sit down and be like, do I go with him? But then he's going to see other children having fathers.
Yeah.
You know, what do? I had to go and borrow fatherhood. I had to go and ask friends to be a father. And I think as much as every friend will agree, but it kind of broke me the fact that I had to go and borrow fatherhood.
Yeah.
And it's not supposed to be like that.
Yeah.
You know, but I had friends that would go and stand in for my child. And there were times that those friends have their own children and it's Father's Day, they have to be at their schools. Unfortunately, then my child had to go alone because those friends, they have their own children to take care of. But I sat down with him and I told him, like, look, Papa, it's just the two of us. And we'd always sing the song, just the two of us. He knows the song. We can make it if we try. So I got into the rhythm that he understands that it's just the two of us.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And there was a time when I would always check in emotionally to check how he's doing because he got to a point where he was suicidal, and I would ask him, Surya, how are you doing now? How are you coping? And one time he said, Mama, I think I've accepted things that I cannot change. I'm able to talk to my friends without crying because I would be angry. You know, I'd cry and want to kill myself. But right now, I think therapy is helping me because I am able to have a conversation with my friends about their fathers without crying.
So how old is Lubambo again?
He's 10. He just turned 10 last week.
Can you imagine a 10-year-old expressing such, it's a very, I don't want to say heavy content, it's very mature. The fact that he can tell that, I've made peace with him.
That's what that's what we were saying, that mothers, single mothers, We're not alone. You're not alone. Seek help. Because should I not have taken my child to therapy, I don't think it would have been possible. Because as I'm saying, you mentioned that, Mommy, I think therapy is helping. So it was me reaching out, seeking help.
And if I can add to that, even therapy, you were saying earlier that not only your child needed therapy, but you needed therapy.
I needed therapy.
If it wasn't for you actually taking that step and say, I'm going to find my support, you might not have been as strong to deal with situations like that. But you were empowered to say that, you know what, I'm strong enough to deal with this, and I'm going to empower you the way I'm empowered, and we can stand together, just the two of us.
Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Absolutely, just the two of us. We need to, if you know the song and you're a single parent, this might just be something that's like, your relaxing song when you get home. Just the two of us. There's nobody else. Right?
Yeah.
And this is what I love when you talk about borrowed fatherhood.
Yes.
Right? You said here, because even in all the exhaustion, all the loneliness, and all the borrowed moments, I knew this. My love had to be louder than absence, stronger than abandonment, and brighter than the shadow of a father who wasn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to love him. You look, being a single mother, you're playing two roles.
Yeah.
You're playing the role of a mother and a father. You have to be soft and yet strong. You have to be firm in discipline and yet give love. So now, obviously, I have to divide myself emotionally into two as well. So I had to love the loudest.
Yeah.
I have to hug him tightest, because now I'm playing two roles. So I knew that whatever I do, it needs to be double. To try to cover up, I can never be his father, but just to try to make him feel loved, to make him feel appreciated. That's what I want.
Yeah, sure. So, I also want to pause at this stage and appreciate those friends that filled in the gap when you needed it,
Yes.
right? We want to appreciate fathers that allow themselves to be borrowed.
Yes.
Just so that somebody's child can have a father figure for a day, even if it's for a few hours.
Yeah.
We celebrate you because we struggle in Africa and in South Africa with absent fathers and who don't quite comprehend what their absence could potentially mean long term for the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, shame, no, but I've had friends that were really coming through. I've got a friend who's a professor in Joburg. He would always, when I do assignments, and I'd be like, how do you do this course? And he'd be like, and I remember one time I did an assignment because I wanted to do it on my own. I tried to be the super mom. And he saw me at work and he said, oh, so now you're doing Lubamba's assignments alone. Because he was so used to, there would be a book day, you need to choose a character, we have to do this, and I don't know, I'm a female, I don't know how to do these things. And he would sit and do, and he would even come to my house and sit with him and try to do these things and teach him, and I couldn't do it. And one time when I did it, it's like, oh, and it was a fight because now I'm doing these things and I'm excluding him. And it was me trying to say that he won't be here forever. I need to be able to learn these things and do these things. And it's tough raising a boy child when you yourself don't have a point of reference. As I've mentioned, even in my house, that chair has always been empty. And in this era, it's also empty. And now the difference is that I'm raising a boy child, because now how do I raise a boy child into being a man when I'm only a woman and I don't even know what it is myself to be a man?
Absolutely. And when I'm listening to you, Wendy, I can't help but make reference to, we have the privilege of listening to, or interviewing Dr. 𝐊𝐢𝐝𝐬 from Potchefstroom University, and he's in the kinderkinetics space where they're looking at movement as a therapy, and as a way to heal. And one of the things he talked about was the fact that he is, there's not enough males in the field that he's in. And he gave us a very brief story about one of the child who needed therapy. And this child was a boy, and this child had such a relief that he has a man working with him, and he looked up to him like a father. So it's very important that we have men present in some of these areas, because boys need a point of reference.
Even male teachers, very important. They play a very important role. And if you look, especially younger schools, foundation phase schools, there are very few men. Because men don't necessarily study foundation phase teaching. And you will see the importance of, for instance, a PE teacher, or the soccer coach coming in, or the kinetics teacher coming in, and how the boys specifically almost gravitates towards them because they need. So, I mean, from my perspective, it is essential that they understand the important role they are playing, far more than teaching PE and coaching soccer and teaching robotics or whatever it is, that there's a bigger role to what they are doing.
Absolutely. And while you're there, Wendy, you in some of the paragraphs here, you mentioned how you wrote letters to the school and asking them to be a little bit more sensitive around the topic on fatherhood. Talk to us about that.
There was a time when it's Father's Day, obviously they need to draw ties and so forth, and my child would come home emotional. One time he came home and he's like, Mom, I'm going to keep all these things for one day when I finally meet my dad. I'll give it all to him. But as he grows, I was like, I don't want to go to school on Father's Day because I'm the only one in class that doesn't have a father. I mean, he was nervous breakdown because even his teacher one time sent me a long email that he saw that my child was not okay. And at the end of the class, the teacher called him, when they call him 𝐊𝐢𝐝𝐬, are you okay? And he said, yes, as he would always say, because he brushed it off.
Yeah.
And teacher said to him, look, teacher won't be able to help you if you don't tell teacher. And he had the breakdown. And that's where the school now also had to come in to get therapists to come to the school to meet him every week. I mean, I've had to write these because now my child is like, what am I going to do with these? I'm busy writing, drawing up for Father's Day. Who am I going to give it to? And I said to him, you can give it to me. And he said, no, you're not my dad. You are my mom. You are not my dad. And you can never be my dad. You're not a boy, you're a girl. So it's obviously now I had to try and, so that they can understand and try to be sensitive, as you've mentioned, that it's also the school's responsibility to teach the children that it is okay if families are different, because he did not understand why it was just the two of us.
Sure. This is very insightful, and maybe by way of wrapping up this segment, because I know we have the next segment to look at as far as festive season is concerned. What message would you want to bring the teachers or the educators to take away from this conversation around? I mean, we know in some countries there's like a grandparents' day where people in the community literally just bring themselves to be borrowed grandmother or grandfather. And I don't know if there's such a thing for that. What role do you think the education system or the schools have to play in cases like the experience of Wendy, whose child is also ADHD?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice to teachers always is to be mindful in every aspect, mindful of the children who are neurodiverse, mindful of families who look different, mindful of children that might not be educated in their first language. I think the most important role of a teacher is just to be mindful. And it can be as simple as celebrating Father's Day, but just to have a little 5-minute talk about families look different before, and giving them an option of a card or activity that they want to do. And they might not want to do a tie, they might want to do a dress or a flower or a butterfly or whatever the case might be. But giving them choice and say, we all look different. We're celebrating fathers for those who have, but some of us don't. And therefore we're celebrating our mothers double. Or we're celebrating our grandparents because my grandfather is filling that role, or whatever the case might be. It's just mindful of the situation and then giving them choice, so that they don't have to make that. I mean, in his case, I almost feel it's unfair. He has to make this tie, and then he has to now somehow figure out, what will I do with this? And it is. I feel that is unfair. Where he could have had a choice of activity. And then, I mean, it's open to who he wants to give it to.
Absolutely. And I see you are nodding quite strongly. Maybe you have something to add on this segment in particular? And maybe also introduce yourself. I think a bit of the mic fell down. I don't know if it matters. Yeah.
Hi, my name is 𝐊𝐢𝐝𝐬.
Yes.
I'm a friend.
Okay.
Okay, I think on the issue of the school, because I am also experiencing the same. I've learned a lot from her because we once spoke about it and gave me the idea of going and reading more about it and everything. My child is 12 years old and I'm struggling with school as well. So I just wanted to know, do the government or institution or Department of Education really empower the teachers about this? Because everything that you come in with, it's exactly how I feel. But then my problem is these are the human beings who are experiencing the same thing that we're experiencing. Now, don't you think that the education system is supposed to be catering that part for them because it's overwhelming for them? What can the Department of Education do? Because it's really unfair for us to have so much expectations from them. What can they do in order to help the schools to actually be inclusive?
For neurodiversity, right?
Neurodiversity, yes.
I think you are the best person to answer this question
Okay.
because that's
Thank
exactly
you.
what you do.
Yes. So what can the department do? I think the department tries their best, first of all. They have so many different aspects that they need to bring across and be aware of. And I'm not saying they're necessarily doing enough, but they are doing a lot to get there. I do feel that it's up to us, up to parents like Wendy to say that we are a team, not necessarily only the Department of Education. Even though they play an essential role in supporting our teachers, I think their focus is the curriculum and delivering the curriculum to the best extent that they can. And it is professionals like me who is not necessarily working for the department, but who is passionate about neurodiversity. And parents like Wendy who says, you know what, I'm willing to stand up and say, my child needs extra support.
Yes.
And to fight. You know, I was giggling when you mentioned the medication being white people stuff, and because the same stigma was there for me and my child. I didn't want to put my child on medication, and I thought, here we are, 2 moms, with our own biases and stigma and guilt that who knows who puts on us. And it's actually so unnecessary. And it takes a woman like you to stand up and say, you know what, maybe it's not just you, it's not just me, it's all of us, and we can actually stand together. I absolutely love that. So in terms of your answer in the Department of Education, teacher training is always good. I mean, the more our teachers are not equipped and they don't get nearly enough training, but they're swamped with admin and administrative work and extracurriculars and teaching cricket and coaching this and drama and all those other things, that there's very little time for actually training that is actually applicable in practice. I think a lot of the training is very theoretical.
Yes.
Teaching teachers what is ADHD and what is ADD, and then they leave there and then say, okay, but now what? I know now. I could have Googled what it is, but what do I actually do? So it is up to people like us who are feel passionate and people who has the skills and the experience. I learned most of what I learned from parents to say that, you know what, we're going to stand together and we're going to make this work.
And what Sonia does in her organizations, which we'll share with you later on, because she's got her own episode, just like Wendy, on Beyond the Box podcast. She empowers parents like you. She provides training because we know that specialist services are quite expensive, right? Having somebody who provides support and train your child. Yes, you may only be able to do that once a month if you're lucky, but if you're not, they provide practical tools that you can put in place at home. Wendy has some charts at home, a smiley face. She knows what I can do to make sure my child is structured, right? But what's important is there are trainings that are being provided to parents to empower you. Over and above what Sonia has said, we had the privilege of meeting the Director of Inclusive Education at DBE national level. And he talks about what Wendy has done. I think when you were on the podcast, when you talked about you were one of those parents who are always in the school. My child needs this, so you need to be passionate enough, as Sonia said, to go and say, White Paper 6, which is a policy that kind of advocate or promote access to inclusive education. It says my child can have a scribe. It says my child can have this to help them cope in the school environment. So it's important that we are verbal about it, right? You knock on a few doors quite regularly. Yeah.
It's as she has mentioned that it's very important that sometimes it's not even up to the Department of Education. It's up to us to be able to stand up for our children, to protect them and also to equip ourselves, educate ourselves on what to do. The department can only do so much, but it is really up to us as parents to be able to fight for our children.
Yes, while you have the mic, my team is telling me we've got 2 minutes left. Maybe you can wrap it up, Wendy, this section in particular about ADHD. what has this journey of discovering that your child has ADHD, being able to understand what it means, putting support in place as a single parent, what has that taught you about life that you want to share with our audience as we close this section of the video?
Look, it has taught me that, like you have said, that if a child is ADHD, there's nothing you can do about it. Like, you can't say, I'm going to pray and it's going to go away. These children are born like that. Okay, we can't change them.
It's
we
genetic.
can't fix them. It's genetic. That's how they are. So it has taught me to see life through my child's eyes and support him and identify the strength in him, his strengths and weaknesses, and support him in that level. There's basically nothing I can do, and it has taught me to be patient. It has taught me to love, you know, and give without expecting anything in return. It has also helped me to heal, and it made me to discover pieces of myself that I did not know existed. It's such a beautiful and colorful journey, and I think most people are confused, if that's the right word, about ADHD because it's colorful, it's different for every child. And I think that's where most people get to misunderstand ADHD because of the colorless of it. So it's important that you identify your child's strength and you support him in that journey, but you cannot change him. That's how he's born. It's genetic. There's nothing, you can't pray, it can't go away. You can only support him to get the best of him.
What are some of Lubambo's strengths? When I met him to collect the book, I said to him, what does Lubambo mean? He said, well, it means a lot of things. A lot of things are coming into my mind. I mean, he's only 10. A lot of things are coming into my mind as to what Lubambo, my name, means. But what it means essentially is that whatever I touch brightens up. For such a insight from a 10-year-old, what does he like? What are some of his strengths?
Look, my child loves the things that he does. He would sit at home and watch TV and watch on how the body, he would watch how the heart is being operated. He would sit and watch radiography. And sometimes I would call him and I'd be like, Lubambo, and he's just zoned out. He's
Totally
volcanoes and how they erupt, the different, that's what he loves. And I've noticed that science, that's his strong point. So I support him in that what he likes to get the best of him.
Absolutely. And this is how we close the segment of ADHD. I know we haven't covered the stigma. We've kind of covered it slightly a little bit there, but we need to close the segment. We have the radiographer. I'm hoping Lubambo will be able to talk to her, who's going to start the next segment around the holiday season is around the corner, and for most of us Black people, that's like, sensory overload, right? And I think across the board, that's what could be felt. And Mampo and Wendy are going to help us unpack, how you at home can prepare for that. So that does it for us. We'll see you in the next cycle. Thank you. At home, 5-minute break. Thank you.
first because I have to use my hands.
Share mine?
Yes. Okay.
Oh, yes, you want to keep your mic on you?
Yes, and then use my
Absolutely.
hands.
Okay. Can you just touch it? Just grip.
Yeah, so you and I will share.
Yes.
Close to this.
This
Grip.
side. This side?
And type it.
To me, they're not this
In the
side.
middle. Yeah, because you can move to both sides. Yeah. Good. Yep, we have some.
Okay.
Okay. Should I introduce you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
It's okay, I will introduce myself.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi everyone. I am Mampo. I'm a radiographer who works closely with people. And more importantly, I'm a proud mom of 2 autistic children, ADHD. A boy and a girl, Sunday and Brianda. Today, I'm about to share with you what holiday season looks like at home and a bit of what I experience differently when I'm at work during the holidays with children.
Absolutely. So we are really looking forward to listening to you on this conversation. Yeah.
So, parenting, which you've explored a lot, it's a storm for everyone. And I appreciate the single parenting journey that you're speaking about. And to go back to your friend over there, sorry, I forgot, Cindy, that there are marriages where there's still a single parent. A lot of people come from those. And I honestly don't know, depending on our experiences, probably, which one is worse. I mean, if you're a single parent, then that's just one of you, and you soldier on, and your children probably look up to you and they see the strength in you. But there's situations where the other parent is just dead, and that's very painful to experience. I feel like that's worse than just one person, because then your child just looks up to you and they know there's just one person. They get to a point where and his head is accepted. Yeah, there's waiting for that other parent, and they just never come back to the party, and it's worse in my opinion. But yeah, I appreciate the single parenting strength that you have, and like you said, there isn't a manual to parenting, so once it has a change of extra things like neurodivergent children and all of that, it's a whole bigger, different whole game struggle. But we soldier on. And with the therapy, like you were saying, I think then we soldier on better. And having introduced all of that into our society that thinks it's for crazy people, that it's actually normal and help us be better parents and parents that can heal and be a positive impact to our children going forward. So in our home, holidays are a lot of overwhelm. There's suddenly music. There's every advert's got a song, and my children usually close their ears to music. The birthdays were not a thing we could sing all the time for birthdays. And there's noise. There's extra people in the shops. We don't go to shops. Check us 60s or saying that. The beaches are full. The malls are noisy. Everything is just, even the streets, the cars passing by the house are extra loud in festive season. So it's a struggle to actually create a space for them to be themselves and not be overwhelmed. And we also have very family-oriented family. We love having extra extended family around. And we've gone a long way in educating our extended family about our different children and what should or should not happen. And I think then you can jump in.
Yes, because I wanted to just mention in most of I would like to say, and I don't know, Sonia, if in the Caucasian family this happens, but usually in December we go home when we say, even though we have our own homes here in Cape Town, We go home to see Bumma. So the grandparents, the cousins, all the extended families. We all drive, and some people you see buses overloaded with people and bags because they're going to see relatives. And for you, in your case, you guys are going to Eastern Cape. There's the whole extended family. Everybody comes in, and it's all jolly and very joyful. And sometimes there's also events to celebrate. And what I would like you to touch on as well, Mampo, is how under that particular event where it was all festivities in the house, and your lovely daughter took a walk.
So Sanda was 4 at the time, and there was a ceremony at home. My 10-year-old now is so used to having so much family around. He always goes, "Is all the family gonna be there? All the family must be there." There's more children to play with. So I'm in the kitchen the whole time. The kids are sort of being watched by whoever can keep checking where the kids are. At some point, we had this notion. I'm just thinking, where are they? I just thought about it. Walk out, I see my boy, and where is Sanda? And then I start asking, where is Sanda? The older kids are like, no, she's in the rendezvous with the adults. I go there, where is Sanda? Oh no, she's outside with the other kids.
And she's 3 at this
She was
point?
4.
Or she was 4?
She was 4. There's no Sanda. Then everyone starts asking around everyone in the yard because, in the rural, they're strangers, but they're not strangers. So everyone realizes Sanda is not here. The gate is wide open. Who left the gate open? Everyone's now asking who was the last person to go out. Well, we know who was the last person to go out. So where is she? Start looking for her. That lasted 4 hours. And our home is like at the edge of the village, and there's construction workers doing the road, and strangers are driving past, and we're like now thinking, where is she? Pit toilets. We were looking everywhere. About 4 hours later, some guys walk up to my husband driving in the veld where you wouldn't expect a car. Are you looking for something? He says, yes, I'm looking for a child. And then one of them is like, oh, show him the photo. And now he's panicking. What photo? They show him the photo of our daughter. And he's like, where is she? And they said, it's fine. Someone said we must come this way. This is where the child came from, this direction. Find out where she belongs to because they couldn't speak to her. She didn't speak.
So she passed this group of men by herself.
I don't know if she did, but once she got to another village, which was like about 20 kilometers away from home, she went into one household where this woman then took a picture of her and said, walk in this direction, that's where she came from. And try to find out if we'll find where she's from. Anyway, long story short, they take my husband to this woman's house, and daughter is still not inside. The old woman wants to ask questions and make sure this is the correct person. What does she look like? What is she wearing? Does she speak? And then now this is a giveaway for us because both my kids were not even born until like 7. And then he explained, and then eventually the woman's like, okay, I sent her to the shop with other kids. I just wanted to make sure that, and she had a sweet when she came, and she wouldn't share it, so send them to buy more sweets. Anyway, so she comes back, the woman explains, she walked here, she followed a dog. She loves animals. She followed a dog from our village to the next village, and went into this household because there were sheep and chickens, and she just went to play with them. And this woman just saw the child playing in the yard. And then they tried to ask her what's her name. She's not speaking. Where do you come from? She's not saying anything. She's just focusing on her sweet and playing with the animals. And then they took her inside, took a picture, and sent people in the direction of where they saw her coming from. And they realized she doesn't speak Xhosa when they tried to take her sweet. And she just said she's fine and started fighting for the sweet.
20 kilometers away. And she passed a bridge.
And at this point she loves water. We are taking her for swimming lessons and everything. And in my mind, she can't have walked past the bridge. There's water. She must have jumped into the water. Like, she's very she's one of those autistic children that have little sense of danger. So if she sees a car, she walks towards it and thinks that she's going to hug it. And it should just be that. So that, yeah.
Sure, interesting. So you see, during the festive season, you essentially, and I want to ask you, Wendy, here, whether do you feel comfortable to let relatives and friends look after the child, because she was being a makoti, and as a makoti, focus on the kitchen. There's relatives all over, they're looking at her. Essentially, nobody was there to look after her. So how have you approached the festive season as far as, making sure that Lubambo has got somebody to look after him because he's ADHD and he behaves differently?
Look, during the festive season, I don't go home.
Okay.
Because I know there's everybody. I'll go home after the silly season has calmed down, probably around March or around June. That's the time I go home. During the festive season, I think I'm still paranoid because when you get home, there's everybody.
Yeah.
And I want to see my child.
Yeah.
I want to see him, so I'm still paranoid. So I don't go home during festive season. And during festive season, I'm always here at home. It's just always me and him. During Christmas, it's always me and him because I want to keep an eye on my child. But when I do go home, I'm trying my level best. I'm still working on it to try to let go.
Let go a little bit.
To try to let it loose, to try to let
Be trusting.
him, yes, because I remember last year when we went to home in Eastern Cape, there was a ceremony. They went to go get water in the river with the cousins and uncles. He almost drowned, but luckily he can swim. You see, that's why I feel like I'm still
holding on.
I'm still holding on. If he's going somewhere, I drop everything and I want to be there. So during the silly season, I don't.
You don't.
I don't.
Yeah, maybe you thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure many parents of neurodivergent people, there's not a lot of people that understand neurodiversity, and therefore you don't feel comfortable to leave your child with anyone. Maybe continue, Mampo, and tell us what happens during the festive season. What do you guys do when you're now preparing to travel to the homelands, and what preparation work is involved?
So, particularly for my two different children, it works differently. Uyanda is 10, likes to be told things ahead of time, and he will repeat them every day over and over again to just get the sense of assurance. And so we have to plan everything well ahead of time, because whatever we tell him, he holds on to it, and if it happens any differently, it's a problem. On the other hand, Sandra is sort of passive, but Uyanda is there to keep repeating the stuff to Sandra. So she's also checking, but like Uyanda is the one that reminds her what we said is going to happen. So by June, we know where we are going, we know who's going to be there, and then we tell Uyanda, this is how we're driving or we're flying.
That's like 6 months in advance, by June.
He has to know. If we tell him close to the exam time, then he's too excited and he doesn't focus on schoolwork. So we need it ahead of time so that he can be excited and calm down about it, or be disappointed and calm down about it, whichever the case is. So who's going to be there? We'll expect a crowd. Is there a ceremony or not? So we're just going to be together. Are we flying or are we driving? If we're flying, we get off in East London, who's picking us up. And a lot of the time he wants to know in what car, how long are we driving to get to the place, and are we going to Mthatha first, are we going to Ngcobo Street, and what activities to expect.
Sorry, will you remember if
He will
there's
remember.
a change of plans?
He will remember.
He will remember.
Because from the time you tell him, he repeats it every day until the time it happens. So it's an expectation that it's built in there. There's nothing you can do differently about it. However, what we have learned to do to create a wiggle room for ourselves as parents is trying to keep most routine things as much as possible, like eating times, sleeping times. So if we're driving, we make sure we stop. And I have the supplies of what they eat. They don't eat a lot of things. They have comfort foods, so we stick to that. So stick to the same foods they're used to, stick to the clothes they prefer, and stick to their routine times. Even if we're sleeping in a different place, just sleep time is sleep time. Eat time is eat time. So so that it doesn't become too much if one detail is a little off.
Yeah, thank you for unpacking that, and I want to hear from you, Wendy, before we go back to Mampo, about what are some of the things that you have observed that your son who's ADHD really they startle him, he doesn't like them. What are some of those things that could throw him off? Maybe for the parents that are listening, who's who are raising kids that are ADHD or autistic, and they're now preparing for the December season.
But my son is, I remember one time when we went home to Eastern Cape, I think it was around late June, and there was a traditional ceremony, and the noise, you can't handle noise. And after the ceremony in the evening, so my nieces and nephews, they were playing music because the ceremony is now done, and they're playing music, and he started screaming and closing his ears, and he couldn't handle that noise. And I think now he's working, I think he's loosening up a little bit because he's that, he can't handle a place where there's lots of people. He couldn't.
A lot of traffic.
No, he couldn't handle that. He would always go into the room and lock himself. So, but now I think since he's on medication, it's getting better. It's getting better. I know the noise is he still can't.
Okay.
I know he's got such social anxiety. He still can't, but at least now when there's people, even though he still needs to warm up to, but it's getting there.
Absolutely.
It's getting there.
Yeah, and Cindy, what about you? What does your child? What are some of the challenges you're facing as far as the festive season?
For me, I haven't experienced such episodes. He does cope. He does cope. He actually likes to be around his cousins.
How old is he again?
He is 12.
Oh, he's 12.
Yes, he actually likes that. And also for him, he's more onto the gadgets, the gaming and all that stuff. So I think they do accommodate him. They also love gaming, so he actually enjoys himself doing the gaming with his cousins.
Not much of the sensory overload.
No.
Sonia, what have you found as far as, Wendy talked about sound, and Cindy is essentially saying, it's likely maybe small groups, being in a less traffic area.
I think all sensory processes can be very overwhelmed. Like we've mentioned, sound is one. Colorful. If we go into the mall now, there are just lights everywhere. It's lights and it's music and it's different music. So I've seen children really struggling with sound and with lights and with busyness of people. Also, you've mentioned the structure and routine that's so important, and there's a change in structure during this festive season all the time. What I've found from our perspective is usually over Christmas we make different types of foods. All of a sudden we want to eat turkey. We don't eat turkey, but now it's Christmas, and now all of a sudden, so it's introducing new foods with different textures, different smells, different tastes, and all those things can be really, really difficult for these children. And you've also mentioned the same clothes. In our culture specifically, because the family's together, we dress a little bit better. We make the fancy foods. And all of that can be very, very triggering. So what you mentioned about sticking to the same foods, sticking to the clothes that they know and that's comfortable and that they're comfortable with is so important. And we often forget. We forget those things. We put on the new shoes that Granny gave them, or whatever the case might be. Any of that can put their bodies into physiological stress and trigger them.
Absolutely. You want to wrap up this session, particularly about the sensory overload, before we move to what parents can do.
So, like you were saying, yes, in the Black culture, it's this Christmas clothes. We grew up with that. I remember my granny used to make Christmas dresses, and cousins right now are busy buying Christmas clothes. We stick to knowing that our kids are different in that regard. Sandra, for example, has this set of pajamas. I think she's had it since she was 4. It's even changed color, but she calls it her soft clothes. So if we must take the 13-hour drive to the Eastern Cape, we let her wear those pajamas if that's what she wants. She comes back from school, she wants to jump into those pajamas and it's okay. It's a soft pajamas. It's what makes her feel better. And I also wanted to say, when it comes to Sandra in particular, Kirsten's child,
Yeah.
she is very independent and very assertive.
Yes, that's what we notice, right?
So she brought into our lives a new dynamic into parenting where it's child-led parenting. She shows us what she needs. She shows us what she wants, what works for her, which is different from her brother. Her brother is obedient. We decide, okay, this looks okay for him, this might work for him, and he goes with it. Sandra, on the other hand, we learned that she regulates by sticking her chest on the freezer. Any cold environment, surface makes her feel better, and so on. So we just let her go with it, and it works.
There's a lot of education you have to do to family, because how dare you don't wear the shoes that grandma gave you? Like, how dare you don't wear that shirt? And how dare you go into the fridge like that? Like, there's a lot of education that needs to happen.
A lot of the time, we are able to fulfill those usual expectations where Uyanda is concerned, for example. See, because he loves Granny. If Granny gives me something, of course I want to wear it. It's not the Christmas clothes, it's because it comes from Granny. Whereas on the other hand, everyone has learned that Sandra, she doesn't play like that. It's fine that you gave it to her. She'll see it next Easter. It's okay. She does what she wants right now, and they've learned to accept it. There had to be a lot of conversations around how different they are, so that people don't feel offended.
Yeah.
For example, last year there was an initiation ceremony for their cousin brother, and Oyanda broke down because when the actual ceremony was happening, he realized that everyone was dressed in Xhosa traditional outfits. And for some reason, in my packing, I forgot he had it. Granny bought it, and I left it in Cape Town. He cried. They left it, your son left it in Cape Town. He was visiting Granny. Your son left my clothes in Cape Town. And I had to call my brother who was on their way to the ceremony and be like, we have a problem. They had to quickly grab what they could find in town, and he had to change as soon as they arrived. And there was our saving grace, otherwise it was going to be a disaster.
Sure. Yeah, so these are some of the things we need to prepare for. But the other thing I wanted to add is that there's I think you talked about texture. Sonia talked about texture. So there's just to share with the audience who may not be familiar that some of the sensory sensitivity also relates to the type of clothes they wear. And if you give them a clothes with a certain type of material, they may not necessarily appreciate it. Not because they're ungrateful, but because
It just doesn't
resonate
with them.
Yeah.
It's called textile sensitivity. Yes.
Tactile sensitivity.
Tactile sensitivity. It's how their skin reacts to any kind of touch. Hence, some neurodivergent children will not let you hug them, and some are good with hugs because they love the deep pressure. So when it comes to their clothes as well, we sort of gravitated to buying clothes from the same places because they're similar material. And with Uyanda, there's more meaning to who gets him stuff and why, and how expensive it is. He loves expensive things. Sandra, on the other hand, it's everything comfortable. I think we've sort of gotten used to what we must do when it comes to buying, and we appreciate that when family decides to do something, like my sister likes to buy them stuff, then I'll be like, okay, this is the only place where you can buy some of the stuff. And because at least there's that positive feedback on how she accepts it when it's what she actually wants.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like that we've already kind of touched on what families can do in preparation for the festive season, being fully prepared, sharing the structure of what's going to happen in advance, shielding them from, in your case, not going out there at all, just keeping your child in the comfort of your home. And for you, informing the family as well. But there's something you talk about really quite well, and I think you talk about it from experience, which I think she touched on. in terms of using therapies earlier on. You talk about pouring from a full cup. And as we go into the holidays, as Makoti is often in the African culture, you have to wake up at 3 a.m., go clean up the yard, cook for everybody, and this is you now on holiday when you're supposed to be balancing, reconnecting with family and also resting. How can the Makotis or the single parents out there pour, from a full cup during the holiday season?
So the preparation of the holiday season, like you were saying, starts with preparing yourself before you get to the children, because like we say, our neurodivergent children, they sense energies, they pick up our moods and our energies. So if you're not okay, nothing is going to be okay. Doesn't matter how you prepare or what you prepare. So therapy, continuous therapy, it doesn't help to think you can do this on your own. It doesn't work. And I have a cheat way of doing things. As a Makoti, sorry to other Makotis out there, I'm a health worker, so they know I won't always be there. So sometimes the family has to come to us, and I go to work, and then I come back and have to just fulfill whatever has been left out in the expectations of running the household. But continuous therapy, really, I can't think of anything better. You can have help, you can have people, your people that help you, but self-awareness and the depth of your emotions and self-regulation, because going back to how our neurodivergent children are actually, it's a genetic thing. So I always say when I talk to Emma, in that large family, some people are a lot like Sandra, and some people are a lot like Uyanda. So it's more of a self-awareness really when I share how to live with and around my children than a whole new thing. It's just seeing the practicality in it and speaking about it in their language that they will understand. That how you like to sit in the room all day. It's because this is what you're struggling with, and that's exactly the same how it is with Sana. So someone in the family already acts like my children. They just don't know it has a name or there's a way of coping with it. So you just show them, make examples, and this goes back to what you were saying about knowing things from a textbook kind of information versus practicality. Yes, versus practicality. When you've had an autistic child for 7 years, you are able to use daily language, daily examples, and observe other people and be like, oh, my daughter is actually like him. And this is what her therapist, obviously I'm not going to say this with a therapist, but I read my daughter's therapist report, so I know this is what you are struggling with, this is what it's called, and people like to hear about themselves a lot.
Yeah.
That's another thing that you can actually use. You're like this, do you know that if you started doing this a lot, it would work for you? If you started drinking this, it will give you more energy, it will keep your memory sharp, and then, okay, that makes everyone around my children comfortable with what my children do. Then we will stop asking the questions of why are the children taking medication, because traditional old people think your children will outgrow this, it's fine. And as they're becoming more aware of themselves, like you say in Lubambwe 10, is starting to accept things and see things differently. They become more aware of themselves. They don't stop being autistic. They just feeling the environment accommodating them more, and they're becoming more of themselves. And versus what we know at school, the main kids let them understand what's going on. Once you're at home, there's all that love, there's all that understanding, there's all that accommodation. And then they feel happier and they become a little slightly different.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I want to throw the ball at you because now you talked in your book, the beauty and battle of a single mom. You talked about moments where you would lock yourself in the bathroom for that 10 minutes and you would curl up with your legs up to your chest and just crying. So if parents or if single parents or parents of neurodivergent children, don't fill their cup these holidays. And I suspect some people cannot afford to go to therapy. So what advice do you have for them? I mean, you don't want to be going to club on your own. Yes, crying is important because you're releasing the energy. What do you say to them?
Look, thanks, Emma. Filling up your cup does not, going to therapy is one of the things, but you should find what works for you. You know, some other people, they go to church and they'll speak to a pastor. Some other children, some other people will speak to someone, you know, who's walked the path, who's done this life thing. You know, you just need to find someone who you feel comfortable talking to. As I've mentioned that, when I speak about my struggle, the pain loses its power, pain loses its strength. So you rather find there's something that works for you. If it's talking or if it's writing it down, it depends what works for you. If it's writing it down, then write it down. If it's finding someone who's older, who's wiser, who's done this life thing, then do that. Do whatever works for you. But what is important is that you fill up your cup. Because whatever you are, you're going to have to pour it into your child, and you need to be mindful of what you are filling your cup with. Because if it's toxic, you're going to pour that into your child.
Yeah, and that's what Mampu usually say. You can't pour what you don't have.
Exactly my point.
Yeah. And what's interesting here, why I want to, before we move on to the next, why I want us to have a lot of clarity on this is because, you know, and as I've said, we had one guest that talked about how, as the neurodivergent parent themselves, who really finds it difficult when it comes to holiday season because there's all sorts of expectations on you. Meanwhile, she just wants to be in her bedroom and regulate herself. But if you're Makoti and you're doing that, you better go home. You've not been taught manners.
So a lot of the time, when I say therapy for me is what works, it's because then I can do that all year round. And then come festive season, I'm good and ready because I already sort of know what to expect. And you also have a lot to think about. Besides being someone who fulfills the expectations of running the household, there's also remembering every 5 minutes to check, is Vienna okay? Is Sada okay? Is everything fine? Remembering their routine while you're busy with all other things. And so there's the tools you can put in place. You know, the noise cancelling earphones, reminding them all the time. You can use that, you can put that on. And in holiday times, I actually don't use Sana's earmuffs. I use these other earphones that she can switch on and off. So off, she can hear the people around her. On, it's noise cancelling, then she can take the breaks she wants. Because sometimes she likes to watch TV and she doesn't want to hear it, but she wants to see it. And then they are nice sensory tent in the room. They know they are allowed. We don't make it a rule, but you can go to your room. You can quickly run in there and recharge, and then when you're fine, you can join everyone. They have their toys, their sensory toys. Crazy Store sells a lot of sensory toys for very little money. And we also are a family that likes drives. That's some of the things that we do once there's people around, because that sort of, it lets you engage. You're out there and feeling the season, but sort of in a space where you don't actually have to interact with people. And trying to go to the beach in areas that are more quiet. Fortunately, Cape Town lets us have some of those. And you can go to the beach and quieter times, maybe evenings, try to avoid the people times and the making groceries from home. It helps in the sense that then I am able to be everywhere, because there's that part. You have to be able to be everywhere with everyone, and still meet everyone's expectations as per usual to keep with the routine of the children.
Absolutely. I think you've covered it quite well. You know, the fact that you need to prepare with your children, you need to manage expectations, and because that reduces anxiety as well, build healthy excitement, because sometimes, you know, they could be overly excited that you can't manage it, and also have some insights in how they're thinking, essentially, and build transparency, be transparent. Just wrapping up that session as well.
So a lot of the time with discussing what's going to happen when December holidays start, there's also visual representations of what's going to happen, so that nothing is a surprise. Every time something is a surprise, the world's are off. And there's involving them. If we want to go on a getaway, which is very tricky with Oyenda because he likes expensive stuff. He wants to go to Japan and fly Emirates in first business class. But we try to involve them and be more practical. It is understanding when you explain things to them. Okay, we can't go that far, but yes, we want to go on a getaway. Where would you like to go? Do you want it to be the beach or do you want it to be mountains? Do you want to see animals or do you want to go a lot to, aquariums? Or then we get an idea of where they both want to go, what we can do, and that way they feel empowered because they have a say as part of the family. We give them assurances every night. We tell them, you are a big part of this family, you are very important, you are everything we prayed for to God when we wanted children. And in so doing, they need to be practically involved when we say we're making family decisions.
Wow, this is amazing. And I know we are running out of time right now. Kirsten and Tandile keep reminding me, like, time is up. I don't know, after execution, what else is still there? Because I would also want to, so that's kind of the last part. Let's look at execution. And then I want to roll in Sonia here because I want to hear what is it that you train other parents to do as far as preparing for the festive season. Maybe give us a little bit about the execution, so we pass it over to you.
Okay. So when it comes to execution, for one, particularly in my household, we always have a smaller Christmas tree. School and TV teaches them that there's supposed to be a Christmas tree, and we don't put lights on our Christmas trees. We put, those balls that go on the tree. We go with that because then the lights are going to be a lot. They already have certain kinds of light in the room, so you can't now bring all color lights, and sometimes they're doing that and destructive and all of that. So we sort of try to do things differently, and unfortunately that's stuff that we can control when we are in our household if family comes to work. But the other way, what does work is that traditionally, in the Eastern Cape buys a Christmas tree. So no one has a Christmas tree there. There's just the different foods, and then I stick to making sure that my kids have the food that they prefer, so that we keep it controlled and they're avoiding the public spaces. That's just a thing that we always have to do.
You talk about being fair with the environment, about protecting your child's environment.
Yes.
What does that mean?
You can't compromise with what's around your child. I think maybe this goes for all parents, but when your children are neurodivergent, you can't improvise with people. You can't. People must fit into the picture you've drawn and have for your children, and it's either that or don't visit. Because it won't work for, my neurodivergent children are already in a world that's not set up for them. They go to schools that are trying to accommodate them, but don't know how to do that fully. I get told by professionals those theoretical things that I'm supposed to do with them, but one-on-one, when I actually have to execute it, it's trial and error, and it's overwhelming and causes anxiety. I can't also bring into their space people that they must accommodate. It always has to work the other way around, which is what I've gone on to spread to my work environment. If you accommodate neurodivergent children, the neurotypical children are already included. So why not do what accommodates this group? Because everyone else is good with these accommodations. And if you are a family member that needs to come into my space and my children's space, I can gauge it from our conversations if you are someone that's not going to be able to be around them. The same way you hold your breath about some Sasnyana uncles and stuff is the same way for our neurodivergent children. We check out your energy, your mindset, what you are capable of discussing and exploring in terms of making our children comfortable. And that's that.
Yeah, sure. I hope, I know you want to add something, Cindy, but we had one parent, and I can see you have it as part of the execution on your list to say, no, you don't need to explain to anyone. Have you found that you had to explain when you go into different rooms to explain, Lumambo is like this, and therefore we do things this way? And when you're done, I want to hear what Sonia said, because this parent said, Emma, we don't go, when you're invited for parties and things, we just don't go, because I don't want to have to keep explaining, my child is like this and that.
Yes, thank you, Emma. I have found myself having to explain that this is how we do things, this is how my child sees the world. And as she has mentioned, that if you do not want to fit into our state, then please go. I do not compromise when it comes to my child. I prioritize it. If you don't want to fit in, then please leave.
Yeah, that can be so difficult. Let's hear from Sonia. From the learning edge, what are you advising parents to do during this festive season? Because I think it's important to know, to be prepared. And Cindy, while Edith also share what to do. I think we'll be wrapping up right after with the last part.
Okay, so Emma, from my perspective, I think I can just echo what Mamba was saying. I mean, she had all the strategies there. Fill your cup is really important. And I think it's important to be mindful of your own needs and also your own triggers. We all have triggers, and I don't think we speak about it enough. My colleague and I often speak about my trigger is if a child is rude. Sometimes it is because of the neurodivergence, but that specifically triggers me. So then I need to step back. For her, it might be if a child is nagging. I don't mind a child nagging. I've got the patience, all the patience in the world. So I think it's important to know what triggers us, and also be mindful of how we fill our cup. So it looks different to everybody. We were talking about therapy. The majority of us, even though we might go to therapy, don't go to therapy over the festive season. So it might just be looking like having a cup of tea first before you engage in family activities on your own. And I think the same way Mampo says she's advocating for her children to say, you're coming into our space, so you need to be accepting of what my children need. I think we need to do the same with us. You're coming into my space, you need to be accepting of the fact that maybe I am, before we're going to roll out the lunch or the dinner or the meal, I'm going to take 15 minutes to myself before we do that. So be mindful of your own needs and your own triggers and what it takes to fill your cup, whether it's a cup of tea, whether you were talking about going to the bathroom and crying. For me, in my sensory sensitivity, I'm quite sensory sensitive. After a day's work, I need a shower. I need to almost wash off the day and regulate my sensory system. So my kids know now, I don't want to hear about hockey and whatever, cricket and everything and the teacher and the friends and whatever, before I had my shower. And then once I've done that, I'm regulated and my cup is filled and I can then respond to them. So I think that awareness is very important. And then also what Mom was saying is be prepared. I think the one thing parents shouldn't do if they have a neurodivergent child is go into the holiday season unprepared.
We'll see what happens when we get invited to.
Just see what happens. See what happens doesn't work. For the majority of children who are neurodivergent, there needs to be a plan of the trip, a plan of the routine, a plan of the meals we might have, plan of possible activities. Even you might not be able to say we're going to the zoo on Tuesday. Even if you can just say this holiday we're going to have the following activities. Or what activities this holiday would you like? These are the options and they can choose. You've mentioned that as well. Autonomy is really important. If we look at neurodiversity, anxiety plays a big part. It's almost always a comorbidity to neurodiversity. And autonomy just lessens that anxiety and then lessens the opportunity for a meltdown. So giving them some form of autonomy, choice, really important. And it doesn't have to be big. It can literally just be, would you like to go to the zoo or to the beach today? Type of that. And including them, as she said in the preparation, ask them. I think we often forget to ask our kids what they need. We make these big decisions of what they need, what they want, how they must rest, what they must eat. And we speak to professionals to find out what they need. We speak to teachers what they need and to doctors and to things. But I've very often found that very few parents sit and say, what do you need? Asking them.
Yeah.
And they know what they need.
Yeah.
And they know what they want. So yeah, that's my advice. I can literally just echo what you said.
Yeah.
That was very sound advice.
I think we need to wrap it up now. So maybe, Marco, give us some closing remarks on your end, and our author Wendy Figlan will also give us some closing remarks around what we've discussed today.
So from my end, it's just to say that holidays are a beautiful time that can be challenging for both the children and for the parents, but with keeping in mind what is most important and what after the holidays you want. When you know you're gonna have a child starting a new grade in a new year, and you don't want anything that will happen in the holidays to be upsetting or someone to be upset and unhappy. So you plan, be mindful, be present, and just do you. I always also say what works for me doesn't work for everyone, but you definitely do you. Your children must, I think for all parents, must always come first. I've always said, once I became a parent, there's nothing that's about me anymore. My children come first, and Shane, I always feel at what you're saying, they're remembering to take care of yourself a lot. I always, I outsource that to the therapist. But with the energy of therapy from around the whole year in the holiday season, then it carries me over, and then I go back.
Yes, and then when you usually say your children confess, what you made me think slightly differently, because you said my kids live in a neurotypical world. Much of what they go through during the day is not about them. So when I come in, I try for a moment kind of make them feel like, they should be first.
Yeah, I do this religiously. When I come from work, I always have this mom guilt that I'm a very patient person, and I find that I'm more patient with the children at work than I am with my own, because remember, this is me after working the full day, and I come home and I'm not really wanting a lot of tantrums and stuff. So I'm a little tired, so snapping comes in. I do this thing where my husband and I discussed it. We do this me time thing. So tapping in and tapping out. So I'll like text, I'm home, I'm in front of the house, I'm parked, I'm gonna come in 10 minutes. So that's a little longer for him, but then it gives me time to collect myself, push out the energy from work, because there's also, as a health worker, there's a lot that you can come from work, but there's a lot of sad things there. Just get myself in the right mindset, walk into the house. A lot of the time, Sandra will take like 15 minutes to notice I'm back because she's watching something. But Wayanda is always acknowledging, coming to pick up my bag, give me a kiss, mommy is home. So I look into his eyes, I do it religiously without fail, and ask, how are you? How was your day? He's gonna say fine to everything, and I'll probably hear the details later. But I at least make the effort to let him feel that he's important. I'm acknowledging that I'm coming home to him, and I want to know how his day was and how he carried everything. Because the meanness and everything they live through every day is a lot. And they don't need to know that when they come home with love and patience and warmth waiting for them.
Yeah, please close this for us, because she touched on mom guilt, and I know we don't have time, and you cover this very well in your book. Give us some closing remarks.
Look, Emma, I've touched on it on my book, with the importance of self-care. As a mother, take care of yourself. Prioritize yourself. As we've mentioned, that you need to fill your cup, because your child needs the best version of you. Your child needs the healed version of you. The children, they don't need a perfect parent. They need a present parent. They need a visible parent. They need a healed parent. So before you do your child, do you prioritize yourself, draw boundaries. I cannot emphasize the importance of self-care. And when I say self-care, I don't mean only the physical. I mean the emotional, the spiritual of it as well. So as a mom, please take care of yourself.
That does it for us here. That does it for us here at Celebrating Neurodiversity. It's been such an honor sharing this couches with you, ladies, and the experts in the room and our lovely audience. You guys have made this day very special. We've unpacked a lot of important issues for many single parents or parents that are doing it together. But most importantly, we've kind of unpacked ADHD. You have received the tools from 𝐊𝐢𝐝𝐬 𝐈𝐧𝐲�00 and Mom Paul, who is a radiologist, but also mom of 2 neurodivergent persons, from Wendy, the author herself, who's a single parent, obviously working the journey of neurodiversity as well. So this has really been very insightful, and from all of us, we say goodbye until next time. Thank you. Okay,